Welcome to episode 268 of the Fabulously Keto Podcast. And today I'm interviewing Jude Hill. So, Jude and I are in a school group together. And the one thing I love about school, and which is where I mostly hang out now, so if you're looking to find me, then come over to school and join us. It is free to join my group, which is school.com/fabulous hyphen low hyphen carb hyphen warrior /about. I know it's a bit of a mouthful, but that's where we are and that's where we hang out. And the links are in the show notes, in the YouTube videos, wherever you're watching, listening. The links are there. So head on over and come and join us. Anyway, one of the things I love about school is there is a section called Map, and you can see where people are on the map in relation to you. Now, the thing is, it's not terribly accurate and it could be hundreds of miles out. They say 10 miles out, but I've seen people being hundreds of miles away from where they actually live. So it doesn't give away your location, but it sort of puts you in a general area. Anyway, one day I was looking on the map and I saw that Jude Hill was just not far from me. So I sent her a message and said, "Where are you? Where do you live?" And it turns out she's the other side of the Thames, even though she was showing on the north side of the Thames. She lives on the south side of the Thames. But we ended up having a conversation and then we got together and had a one-to-one on Zoom. And I thought, listening to her story, that she might be a good guest for us because she doesn't do low carb or keto, no specific way of eating. However, she's gone through some life experiences that I think other people, maybe not many, hopefully not many, have gone through or are going through. And so I invited her to come on as a guest. And so this is our interview with Jude. So let me read you her bio. Jude is a life after loss mentor, transformational energy healer, and grief coach, helping women rebuild their lives and truly thrive after loss and adversity. She's a mum of 4, including 2 children in spirit. Jude brings deep compassion and lived experience to her work. She is the founder of Sadness to Sunshine, where she supports women navigating grief, identity shifts, and life's most challenging transitions. Through a unique blend of energy healing, intuitive guidance, and practical support, Jude holds a compassionate, grounded space where women feel seen, heard, and understood. She empowers women to reconnect with themselves, guiding them to discover hope and healing, helping them to move from surviving to thriving, and enabling them to live life fully again. She is also the creator of several heart-led online communities for women seeking real connection, support, and transformation. So whether you're watching this on YouTube or listening on your favorite podcast app, let's go and hear from Jude. Welcome, Jude, to the Fabulously Keto Podcast. It's fabulous to have you with us today.
Thank you for having me on.
And we always start with, where in the world are you?
I'm in Rochester in Kent in the UK, so just under an hour away from London.
Yeah, I'm probably about an hour from me. So
Yeah.
just over the Thames. So one of the things we have a conversation, we're in a group together and we had a conversation a while ago. And whilst you're not low carb or doing any of the things that my normal guests do, I thought you were really interesting to talk to, and you've gone through a lot of life experiences. And, maybe there's other people out listening to this
Mm.
that will resonate with your message. And so I really wanted you to come on and talk to us about what's gone on through your life and what you're doing now and all things like that.
Well,
So
thank you.
why don't you, but I'm just going to leave it to you to where you're going to start to tell
Where
people.
do I start? Oh.
Yeah, well, I think go back to when you were at school, and we can start with weight and health issues and then
Yeah,
leading.
and then
Yes.
see where it goes. Yeah, well, I think it has a knock on, doesn't it? I mean, my weight has definitely yo-yoed across the years, but yeah, I remember as a child, and I didn't have, it wasn't like I had loads of sweets or chocolate and that. We didn't come from a wealthy family, but I had a realization the other day that you always had to eat everything that was on your plate. So whatever was put on there, and I thought, oh, that could be it. Because even sometimes now, especially if it's like something like I've bought a takeaway in, there's that last little bit, and then I sort of almost force myself to eat it, and then afterwards regret if your stomach's telling you no, you should have left that last bit, but you just
So
do.
ingrained,
But
isn't it? It's so
yeah.
indoctrinated in us that I had this conversation on another podcast around how I used to eat as much as my dad, and that was seen as
Mm,
a good thing, but it was like massive of food. You know, he was a
yeah,
man and I was 11 years old or something. And
yeah.
we just take on these things from our families. I think, oh, there's children in Africa dying. Well, how
Mm,
is me not eating that gonna impact children in Africa? It doesn't.
yeah.
It didn't compute even when you're a kid, but you just were told to eat it, so you ate it.
Yeah. So there was that. Not to say I was majorly overfed. I think some of it is just natural metabolism. I'm not sure where we go with that one, but yeah, I was always quite plump as a child, and I remember being bullied for being fat. And I was lucky when I went to high school, secondary school, that I had a few close friends, a couple of which I'm still in contact with now. So that was sort of like my wall around me sort of thing, and a couple of them were in the sort of semi-popular crowd, so that was a bit better, and people left me alone. But yeah, definitely sort of struggled with weight even as a child. And then I think I went to my sort of slimmest then. I moved out of home at 17 because I was quite independent, and my mum was quite she'd been brought up by her grandparents, so she was quite sort of regimented in her rules. So it was like, oh, sorry, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna leave. And then I think with that, some of probably, I mean, I was very active then and that sort of thing, just in doing normal stuff work and then going out and doing things. So I think that just helped. And yeah, probably then I was only more or less eating when I felt hungry, which is natural, but it wasn't like a conscious decision. It was just what was happening. And
Yeah.
yeah.
So then did you lose weight after that once you left home?
Yeah, so once I left home, I think when I was sort of 17, 18, that was one of the times I remember being at my slimmest. And then obviously that's natural. But when I was 20, I fell pregnant with Adam. So obviously put on weight then. But even when I put on weight then, I remember at one point I was thinking, I'm going to get a t-shirt made with I'm pregnant, not fat on the front of it. Because I was just one of those people. I put on weight all over. I was like Michelin woman, even like my arms there sort of swelled up, and there's a couple of stretch marks still there now and that sort of thing. And I just went and sort of expanded outwards everywhere rather than just a bump. You know, you see those nice slender ladies that they turn around and they've got that obvious bump. And at one point I was working in London then, I was travelling back or travelling on the tube in London thinking, give me a receipt. I'm sort of 8 months pregnant here, but I just probably look fat, so nobody realised I was pregnant to offer me a seat. So yeah, there's all things with that. And then I suppose the next thing, weight wise, rolling on a bit, I can't remember in between, but my son got sick when he was 18 months old, and it turned out he had brain tumor, so he was in and out with chemotherapy. So then there was more things there where you're just sitting by the bedside, so you're just eating whatever's there, and you're in that sort of circumstance. And I'm sure other people have had other emotional issues that have caused them to even, you tend to go two ways, I think, with the emotional, either not eating, so you're going to that extreme, or you're eating all the wrong things and chocolate and cake to try and find some sort of satisfaction. And then I lost him when he was 4.5, and then wasn't immediately. I did go back to work fairly soon, so again, I suppose I was reasonably active, but there was probably a bit of, oh, what's the point when I get in? I did eat at work because there was a canteen sort of thing, so that was easy, that was done. And then I used to just get like a snack when I got home, and then after a while, when I sort of did start going back out a bit more into the real world, and that I got into exercising. Probably some people that go to the gym every day will think that's not much, but for me it was. I used to go about 3 times a week to different sort of aerobics classes, and things were was my thing. But yeah, and then even one of my friends that had trained as a PT and run one of the classes I used to go to, she said, "Oh God, Jude, don't lose any more weight," sort of thing. You're looking too gaunt and that. And then that was one of the other times in my life when I was probably at my thinnest. But even then, I still weighed quite heavily, weirdly enough. When they do those charts and you get marked whether you're obese or whatever from there. Because I've always been heavier like that. And I remember my dad telling me a story once. He went to one of the old-fashioned fairs and they had someone that like guessed the weight sort of thing, and he was really like, "Oh God, how can you weigh that much?" sort of thing. So I just used to say, "Oh, it was a hereditary thing, I was heavy boned."
Uh, I think we do that, don't we? We follow what our family does, so
Mm.
we follow the physical traits as well, but also thinking, yeah, I'm heavy boned, but actually, I don't know if you've taken a piece of meat or chicken or something and actually weighed the bones, they don't weigh very much. I've tried that, weigh it with the bone, weigh it without the bone. Oh,
Oh, okay.
much difference. So yeah, I think we tell ourselves these things.
Yeah.
But yeah. So did you have so after Adam passed, did you have any children, other children at that time, or was he your only one at the time?
He was my only one at the time. Yeah, I've had 2 other sons since then, but yeah, he was my only one at the time.
So how I just can't even begin to imagine what you went through.
So,
You
yeah,
were
I mean,
young, weren't you?
yeah, it was, and I think that's part of it. It's strange because now sometimes I work with other mothers that are like the age I am now, sort of thing, and have recently lost children. Some obviously losing adult children. It's devastated, and they are at that point where like most of us could be, oh, what's the point in going on? Initially, I went back to work because of the practicalities as much as anything else. I had my own flat with Adam, and I was a single mum to him, so there was no one else to pay the bills. So, but it did give me a focus. It was 7 or 8 hours a day where obviously it's not totally out of your mind, but I did manage to compartmentalize it at work, and I got a friend to tell everyone because they all knew the backstory because I'd been off when he'd been ill and with the diagnosis and things like that. So everyone in the office was well aware of the situation. I just said, I'll just tell people not to ask me because I was so fragile that if anyone had said in the nicest possible way, "Oh, how are you doing?" I would have just broke down in tears and not been able to cope. So I wasn't really coping. And, that's the big thing with grief, especially when you have some sort of major loss, that people don't get the support, and then you start to be quiet because you think, oh, other people don't want to know what's going on in your head and things. So there was a bit of that. But then the other sort of moment for me was 2 things. One was just generally, I thought, Adam didn't get the chance to live, so I've got to do my best to live. And although it was horrible and, no way it was easy, and it was a several year journey. And now, even with the hindsight of looking back, even when I thought I was doing okay, I realised I wasn't really doing okay at all, sort of thing. I was just managing. Um, and then the other part of it was because, like, being 24 at the time, I was young, and you're stuck in that totally unbearable pain, like you say, even unimaginable. And if you've not been through it, and if you've got kids, even just that mere thought is like, oh my God, I don't know how I'd cope, And in some ways, we're nothing special, but you have no options. You either have to cope or you go another route. So yeah, a bit of it was like, well, I've just got to get on with things. And I thought I've owe it to Adam to try and live for him, because even though all he went through with the hospital treatments, he was always smiling and didn't really complain and that. So it was sort of him giving me the energy to go on in one part. And then the other part of it, I thought, well, God, even if I've got even a relatively poor life expectancy of sort of 40 plus years, taking me into my 60s, like the thought of being stuck in that level of pain for that length of time was sort of more scary. So it was sort of that pushed me onwards as much as it could to just step by step take each day and the small steps and slowly progress and, rebuild a life for me.
Yeah. And so I just don't know what to what to say now. It's just because I guess part of it as well is like for me who has, I've lost my dad, I was very close
Mm.
to my grandma. It's very different to losing a child. And I used to have these conversations with my grandma and I said, I don't want you to go. And she said, it's the natural order of things
Mm.
that I should go before you. And
Mm.
you should go before your children. And so that helped me in a way, but I think we get to the point where we're not willing to talk about death
Mm.
and talk about how you feel about it. How can I help you? What can I do? We tend to just back off and say, oh, I don't know what to say, so I won't say anything.
Mm.
So as a person that's not going through that grief, we tend to just ignore it and hope that that person's doing okay. And that's probably not a good thing to do, is it?
Yeah, I think it's just the uncomfortableness. I mean, my friends at the time, again, for the age that we were, none of them were mums at the time. So they would have thought, oh God, we don't know what to do. But they didn't want the thought of me stuck in the flat all on my own at the weekend. So they used to come round and drag me out. And we'd go out Friday night and Saturday night, as you would normally at that age at 24. And because of being me, I'm a Libran by birth. So that's my sort of personality, people pleasing to a degree. Okay, I'll go along with it for them because it was easier to say yes in some ways than say no. And then I'd drink, which was semi-normal for going out at that sort of age and that as well to get through the night. So, everyone thought I was okay. Even my mum said to me once, so it's all right for you. You're back at work and you're out with your friends at the weekend. And I was like, my own mother, have you got no idea of, nobody knew the internal battle I was going through at that time. But like you're saying, because it's in some ways so extreme and so bad when it's a major thing like that, you don't want to all. I know that was my feelings. I didn't want to burden my friends, or I knew my mum and dad was hurting, so I didn't really want to share.
Yeah. So,
Yeah,
I'm sorry for your loss anyway. I know it's
it's
a long time ago, but um, I'm sure you still carry that pain.
yeah, I mean, it was, I mean, that's jumping ahead a lot in my story, but yeah, it resurfaced 20 years later. And then that was when I found the energy healing, and that was really helpful because you can voice some things, but it's really just lifting it out of your energy. And that's the thing, you're carrying that even later when I'm the boy's dad sort of thing and formed a relationship. And then even things like that, I didn't realise at the time he was more keen. He was the one that suggested having children, and he was 8 years younger than me. So I sort of said, oh, are you sure you're ready? And all that. And that was true to some degree, sort of thing. And he wasn't the most hands-on dad. So there was an element of truth in that. But again, looking back now, I can see that was a fear, that was my subconscious going, you're going to have another child and then you're going to risk going through that again, not that, anything should happen or more likely to happen. But yeah, your subconscious mind is very strong with what it does. And then even when the boys then came along, I then had a miscarriage in between the two sons I've got now as well. So they're both rainbow babies. And I think that almost finished me off because it was a sort of, it was a different scenario of losing a child. And some people might say, well, you hadn't even had a child at that point. But I think most women out there listening, it's the moment you're pregnant, you know, that's your baby, that's your child. And even if, again, you've not consciously thought of it, subconsciously, your mind's played forward to all the things that are coming in the future that would be normal for a lifetime and things. So yeah, the only thing I think that got me through that was I still had Nathan sort of thing, and the other baby would have been due around his first birthday. So again, that's another sort of slightly bittersweet, when you, especially in the early birthdays when you thought about that. But that was a big thing that that got me through at the time.
Yeah. And again, miscarriage is another thing that's not spoken about, even though
No.
women, I've had a miscarriage. Many women go through that, but it's not spoken about, and all your hopes are in that baby, and then even if it's only 6 or 8 weeks, and then but other people from outside tend to go, well, oh, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It wasn't a baby, but it was.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
it's
for
all
me, mine was at 13 weeks, so it had just got to the point as well where I just had the 12-week scan. So we'd literally announced it to the whole family and people at work as well, sort of thing, going, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna have another baby, and it's going to be due around Nathan's birthday," and that sort of thing. So yeah, that was worse when everyone knows. But yeah, a lot of people don't see it as that, but again at the time, and certainly looking back now, I'm very grateful I've got other children. I know there's other women that have had repeated miscarriages and haven't actually managed to get there, and that is very devastating to have to accept that news as well.
So take us further down your story.
Yeah, so skipped ahead. I mean, just in between that, for context as well, around the grief work that I now do. Um, just before the second anniversary of Adam's death, my dad had a fatal heart attack. My mum phoned me at work one day, and I think she was obviously just in shock and just came out of it. She didn't say, "Are you sitting down?" or anything. She just sort of said, "Your dad's dead," and I was like holding the phone because it was a proper phone then, like what? What did you say, mother? You just think, no, I couldn't have just heard that sort of thing. And yeah, he'd had a sudden fatal heart attack. So I can't even remember now how I got home that day, whether I drove or someone took me, or the logistics. But yeah, so that was just totally out the blue. And then my mum had been poorly for a while. She'd been poorly when Adam was in hospital with kidney issues, and she passed away 18 months later. So yeah, I had compounded all what they now call technically complicated grief, which again I didn't realise at the time. I mean, there was a bit of me when my dad went, and now I realise at the time I didn't even grieve for him, because, like you say, child loss is. I don't like to compare losses because anyone's grief is devastating and that sort of thing. But as when it's out of the natural order, especially sort of so young, it was like, oh, at least he's got granddad with him now. And I think that was just a bit of coping mechanism. Not that I was mega religious or anything at the time, but like you do to a little child when they lose nanny, you say, "Oh, nanny's up in the sky," or something like that. That was my first loss, my nan, and that's sort of quite a common way of how we deal with grief. So it was a bit like that. It was, oh, at least he's got granddad. And then when my mum went, that was my one slight comfort at the time, was like, oh, he's got both of them looking after him. And weirdly enough, although it's now 33 years on, for everyone's different, but for me, he's sort of frozen in time as that little boy, and it's quite hard to think of him as being older, whereas some people really get stuck in their grief, particularly with the bereaved mums. And there's no right or wrong, but in one way, I don't think that's healthy for them if they get stuck there, and respect the birthdays and celebrate them. But yeah, it is a really hard thing with what you do there going forward. And I suppose, and even with having the other children, some from the outside looking in, probably everyone thought, oh yeah, she's fine, she's getting on with life. Even my school friends, oh yeah, she's got other children now, and almost like, not, it didn't happen, but it's not that so severe. And obviously my husband, although he wasn't around at the time when I lost Adam, he knew my history and blah blah blah, and his family. But again with them, when Nathan was there, it was like, oh, Nathan's first Christmas, and he was the first grandson as well. So yeah, it was all put there, and yeah, it was a happy time. But for me, and I was the only one feeling it then, especially where I'd lost both my parents, that would have been the only ones that sort of could have understood a little bit. So yeah, it was buried for a lot of years as that went on, and the triggers with them, and when they started school, and he didn't. And then you just avoid certain situations as well, like hospital TV especially kids hospital programs. I couldn't have one of them on the telly. So even, 10 years later, it stuff like that, can still be quite triggering. And then it was sort of rolling on from that. The next, I suppose, major milestone in the story was I was at a business workshop, 20 odd years later, and we was learning public speaking. So the presenter was saying about, it's important to get emotions across in the story, even if you're running a business thing and it's not even necessarily a particularly personal business, if you can bring a bit of emotion into the story, then that connects people on, the head level, or they're looking at the offer and thinking what it is, but the emotional level, they're connected to the buying into the product or the service then. And she played this video, and even now I think I'm not quite sure why that was overly emotive, but it was a bit of a strange choice. It was like a cartoon video, and there was a cartoon kid playing in the garden and the dad looking out the window, and then it was about knowing that the child was terminally ill. It was just, that was it. I was gone. I was a mush and that sort of thing, and everyone was like, "Oh, it's sad, but it's not that sad." It wasn't even real to them because it was
Yeah.
a cartoony thing. And I was like, through sort of proper snotty sniffy tears, I'm trying to say, yeah, but you don't know. And some people in the room knew me reasonably well through business networking then, and they was like, "Oh my God, we never knew." Well, you don't introduce yourself, "Oh, hi, I'm Jude," unless you do the sort of business I do now, and then it's going to come up and the scenario. So yeah, that was, but even then I sort of put it back in its box, because I was like, "Oh, what's going on then?" I'd pushed through, and I'd done all the, as much as you feel you can move through them sorts of moments. And I thought, I'd got to the point, by the time I'd had the other kids, certainly outwardly on the surface, there was other things going on internally. But outwardly on the surface, I was, we'd go, and even like the Christmas, we'd do the Christmas Eve at the, and oh yeah, we're going to put flowers down. And, from babies, it was normal to them because they were used to going and visiting the grave. And I think kids take it much better than we do, especially when they're young, or they sort of, it was just normal to them. I remember one of the funny things Adam said at nursery once to one of the other little boys. He said, "Oh, what hospital do you go to?" Because going to hospital was normal to him. He'd done it since he was 18 months old. He probably couldn't remember what he'd done in the first 18 months of his life. So, yeah, to him, it was just, oh, that's just a place we go. And it wasn't sort of scary and things. So, yeah, that was quite one of my little comical memories
Yeah.
of him. But yeah, so I sort of pushed it down again at that point. And even the lady that was running it, sort of, I remember now, she put her arm around me at the end and said, "Oh, I know it was a long time ago, Jude, but maybe need to get some support with that." And I was quite stoic. I was like, "Oh, I don't know what's," and I thought, no, sit back in that box, and life went on and that sort of thing. And then a few months
How,
later, I was,
how old were
sorry,
you at that point? How long after Adam?
uh, I was 40, about 47, 48 then. So yeah, 20 plus years at that point.
Yeah.
But I think that was particularly, it's a little bit better now, but it's still not, I hear it so much from the other mums that I work with. Like you say, people don't know, they feel uncomfortable with the conversation or having the conversation. And it's one in my little model that I work with. I've got 4 C's, and one of those is communication. And we were saying at our local grief group the other day that it shouldn't, you're at your weakest level at some point when you've lost whoever, and you shouldn't have to be the strong one that's asked. And sometimes you don't actually even know what you want at the time. I didn't know what I wanted back then, so I just sort of went along with friends and things. So having someone that's sort of been through it, that can, work with you on suggestions of what you want, and just being there is vital with the communication. But yeah, I went to this retreat that was on another subject, and then I ended up at the beginning of that just putting down, one of my intention was that I wanted to talk about Adam without crying. So yeah, there was a whole big release went on that weekend. And then as the retreat went on, the lady that was running it said maybe I should be doing something different to what my business was at the time. And yeah, that was the seeds of founding Sadness to Sunshine and providing that support for people.
Mm. So what are your 4 C's?
So it's first one is care, and it's caring for yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And then the sort of two intersecting ones are connection and communication. So it's reconnecting with yourself and your heart and what you truly want, reconnecting with the person you've lost, be it child or whoever, because I think that's the biggest thing in the physical world. All you just see is that physical separation. I used to spend hours going to the grave desperately trying to want to feel close to him because in my logical mind, in one way, that was where he was. Whereas now I just know he's in my heart and I can connect whenever, and that's the biggest comfort that doing this work's brought to me. And then the fourth one is create. So it's creating that new life. People often talk about in the grief subject, you're in a new normal. Life isn't going to be the same, especially if it's a real major person you've lost, be that a child, partner, a husband, a mum, or a dad. Because there's all those moments, like when I got married later to the boy's dad, my parents weren't there, and it wasn't like if I was getting married at my age now, then maybe you'd sort of expect, oh yeah, it's fine that they're not there. But yeah, in your 30s, you still expect them to be there. But yeah, so it's how do you move forward and create that? You can't go back. It's the one thing most people want. They want life to go back to how it was before, and but that can't happen. So you've got to process all those things, and then the final bit is creating the new life that works with you. But you can bring that person through as part of it as well, and honor them in whatever way that feels right for you.
Yeah, that sounds really positive. I can see how that would help someone through.
Mm.
Do you find that people come to you in the early stages of grief, or have they gone down the road a bit before they look for some additional help and support?
It can be either. I mean, I raised that with one of my first mentors, and a lot of places out there, which is another thing with help. Some people, if they're out there in those initial early stages seeking, even, the common form of help that you get, like counselling, quite often you won't be even allowed to go on a list. I don't know about if you pay privately, whether they take you on sooner, until you're at least 6 months bereaved. And obviously, it is a very difficult time, but sometimes that might be when it could be a slightly different form of support, but it could be when people need the most support, especially if they're not getting it from the people around them, and the people around them don't know what to do as well. So
Yeah. And usually people around them are grieving at the same time.
that's it. Yeah.
Even if it's a friend, if they've known this person that if they're a close friend and they've known the person that you've lost, it's still a close thing, isn't it?
Oh yeah, totally. In some ways, I mean, I was grateful. My boys now, which is the other thing I say to people, that they've got a relationship with Adam, and they didn't even physically meet, but obviously they didn't, it's different to those where there's other siblings, and you're the parent, you're going through your own horrendous loss, and then you're trying to do that. I mean, one of my other clients, that was her moment that brought her to working with me. Her husband would go out to work, and then she'd get ready and do the sort the child out, going off to nursery and coming back. And then when her husband got in from work, she'd normally go into her bedroom and then let it all out and have a massive cry on her bed and that. And then one day she heard her daughter saying to her husband outside, "Oh, will mummy always be sad and crying?" Because I think the daughter was about 6 at the time. So they just sort of go and say it as it is. And, that was her wake up call, that she needed to go and get some sort of help, in her mind. And obviously she was doing the best she could. She was doing the physical things of looking after the child, and, there's a certain amount of emotional support. But yeah, unless you look after yourself and you're filling your cup up, you can't give what you need to give to others as well.
Yeah, especially if you've got children already.
Mm.
And that's sort of hard. I just, yeah, I can't even begin to imagine what that's like. Um, so how in your experience working with people with grief, how do you find, I'm gonna just bring it back to diet,
Hmm.
lifestyle and health, and where does that fit in somewhere with people? Do, I don't know. Do they want to take care of themselves? Are they letting themselves go? What sort of things do
Quite often, yeah. So in those early stages, people will sort of tend to go one way or the other. And in the early times, sometimes you've got, the friends or family that want to be helpful, doing things like bringing dinners round, so you haven't got to cook, because sometimes you just, oh, I haven't got the energy to cook. Like with me, I was just about getting through my day at work. That's why at least I suppose I had the semi-sensible thing. I utilised the canteen at work and ate there, and then I could just have soup or a jacket potato or something, and I didn't have to, it was just another thing I didn't have to think about when I got in. I could just eat basic things like that. But yeah, that's where one of my care things come in. And also even with exercising, and not even in the sense obviously with that of exercising to lose weight, but just to get those endorphins going as well. And that can be anything from a 10-minute walk round the block, just getting out in fresh air. Sometimes people just can't face going out the house, understandably, you just want to hide at that moment. But, even if it starts with, 5-minute walk round the block, and if you can't do any longer, that's it. And then sometimes people really get to enjoy those walking times. And, if you can do it somewhere where it's in nature, then that's even better. Even now, I know sometimes if I'm busy, I'm getting on with things, but I've got dog now, so yeah, I have to get out with him every day. And yeah, I do like going around the park and being in more nature areas, and sometimes ideas and things will come to me there, or you can just feel more connected where it's quiet. So yeah, you've definitely got that element within the physical care. And even just a little bit of movement is good for you, because the other thing that compounds quite often, one of the other ladies I work with, she'd developed fibromyalgia, and when we worked back to the root cause, that was from her grief and loss as well. And then by the time we'd finished working together, she'd come off virtually all of her medications for the fibromyalgia, because it's like inflammation of the body. So it was all, that energy has to have somewhere to go. So if you're not processing it, it'll often come up. And there's a lot of things with there's the obvious connections, but yeah, there's a lot of less obvious things between emotional things. And then eating as a whole, people will go one way or the other. Either they'll think, oh, I can't face food, so they don't eat, and they go down that route, which isn't healthy. Obviously, they're maybe nice and slim, but it's not healthy, too slim. Um, but yeah, or they'll go the other way and they'll want to comfort eat, and and especially if that's contained with not getting out as well, then they're just sitting there eating the biscuits and the chocolates. Or I think it's that time where the evening, like the quarter time, and yeah, then you just feed yourself. You're feeding your emotions, because you're not getting those emotions satisfied in more healthier ways.
Mm, yeah. So I know one of the things is you then, I guess later on, did Slimming World and lost
Mm.
weight. Um, ha Tell us about that part of your story.
So yeah, that was probably slightly in a way a different sort of trauma. So long on then, we've got both the kids, and yeah, things weren't great between my husband and I, and we eventually separated. So I did a bit of the, oh, it's going to be a new me now sort of thing. That's and I think you just get comfortable as well. Mine was definitely sort of comfort eating during that time. We both worked full time, so quite often at the weekend we'd be thinking, oh, we're too tired to cook, so we'd get takeaways, or we'd go out and for a meal with the kids and things. So yeah, just eating not a very healthy lifestyle. And I was a driving instructor growing up with the kids. So again, you're eating on the go, or sat down all day. So yeah, did very little movement and exercise then. So yeah, when that happened, I went into a bit of like it was going to be a new me. So yeah, I got out more, and my friends actually invited me to go, and she even said, "Oh, I wrote the text out about 4 or 5 times before I hit send," because she said, a sort of sense of humour, she said, "How do you invite someone else to go to Fat Club? It's a bit of an insult if you're saying that, you need to lose some weight as well." She was losing weight for forthcoming weddings. So yeah, we went, and that worked for me. I mean, I think it's quite a balanced diet. I was lucky with some things because I don't eat cheese, and that's one big thing that a lot of people struggled with. That you whatever you're, I can't remember now, the A and B choices or whatever, it was a little bit of milk or the cheese, and I only have milk on the cereals. I don't have milk in tea or coffee. So yeah, it did just work for me. And but there's that element of willpower, isn't it? And I know there's a lot of people that struggle, and it's not like that they're not trying, but and different things work for different people. But even that, I'd find it'd be going a few weeks and it'd be successful, and then you'd get that week where, oh, I've ate the same. I've ate really good this week, and I've lost like half a pound, or I've put on half a pound, or something. So, yeah, I think it's just being mindful of what you eat, and yeah, chocolate's always been my nemesis throughout all of my
Yeah, I
adult
think
eating.
I think that is for lots of people. I mean, it is for me in a way, because I do, like, I often show under my desk all these bars of chocolates that I have sitting here. Um, so I do like a bit of chocolate, but just have a control that I don't need
Mm,
to eat. These have been here since January, I think, January or February. I just don't need to eat it. I can eat a square and then leave the rest. I had a square last night, maybe, or yesterday afternoon. Maybe I'll have another square today. Maybe I won't. Who knows? I might
yeah.
decide instead I've got some homemade ice cream in the freezer. So I would tend to not do both.
Mm,
Might have chocolate in the afternoon and then not have anything after my supper, or I might decide, oh, I'm not going to have chocolate today because I'm going to have a bit of ice cream after my dinner. So
mm.
I'm quite controlled in that. But lots of people are not. They just
No, I
want
used
to
to
have
buy
a
like the
square.
big bars because you think, oh, that's cheaper. And like you say, I used to keep it in my drawer, bedside cabinet, and I think, oh, I'll just have a strip, like a couple of chunks sort of thing. And then I'd shut the drawer up and I'd carry on laying there watching the telly or whatever. And then it's like it was yelling at me from there, oh, go on, just have another strip. And then before you know it, the whole bar was gone. And so now I keep a little bit of chocolate in the house, but I try and buy like the small mini bars, and then if I'm gonna have one, I'm just gonna have that one, or biscuits. I don't really buy packets of biscuits anymore because that was fatal as well once they're open, or if you go to a coffee morning thing and there's loads of biscuits there and that, you just end up you pecking them before you even realise that
Yeah,
you're,
you don't.
yeah.
It is an automatic pilot thing. You don't think
Mm.
about it. So what led you? What happened? I mean, you spoke about that time when you were on that retreat and somebody saying maybe you're not doing the right thing. What led you to start helping people, mainly parents who are grieving? What led you to working with them, setting up your Sadness to Sunshine business?
So I came back from that weekend, and my head was a bit of a. So I went round one of my business friends that who, you can have a heart-to-heart talk, but talk sort of business as well. And I said, "Oh, is this a bit of a daft idea?" And she did like an NLP rocking chair uh, session with me. So you go forward a few years and you imagine just things carrying on as they were with the existing business and life and not doing anything, and then the short version's like, how do you feel? And then take you back, and then you do another one where you do change what you're doing, and you do that, and and then at that point it was a relatively, it's still a scary choice in one way, but a relatively easy choice. It's like, oh, I've got to try and make a difference, and there's people out there that need this help. So that was the one part of it. And then we did a little bit of brainstorming on the name, and she'd come up with a few things like sadness to serene and sadness to something else, and none of them quite landed. And I just said, oh well, I'll think about it, and I went off. And then it was as I was driving back to my house, the Bill Withers song came on the radio, Ain't No Sunshine When She's Gone. I thought, oh, that's it, sunshine. And then like afterwards I thought, duh, now it's what I teach, sort of thing. That was a sign, because quite often they say people that have passed over will communicate through electronics because they're energy now. So it's one of the easiest way that they can communicate, whether that's lights going on and off when they shouldn't, TVs turning on or off, sort of those little things, or if it's the
Oh,
kids, the electronic toys going off when there was no battery in there or something, and like with that, or it will be like a song come on the radio, you're thinking about them, and then the song will play that was at the funeral or something. So yeah, I definitely took that as a sign that he'd given me that. So that was where the name come from. And yeah, it's just what I want to do with anyone. I mean, I've always been one of those, I've covered some of them on here. Obviously, loss is a lot of the adversities I've been through, but even the divorce was another different type of adversity. And my sons that I've got now, the youngest one's got ADHD and the older one's got Asperger's. So there's been things to overcome with that. So it's a natural thing that I do in my own little way. And obviously now I use the energy healing a lot with whatever I'm struggling with to overcome. But that was where it was born. And yes, I went and trained in that methodology, and then since then I've trained in a few other things going along, because so I've got more of a toolkit to offer people when they work with me as to what's the best option for them.
yeah. So tell us a little bit more about I mean, you did a little bit, but I'm really interested in the energy and people sending messages through energy. I always have, since my dad died, is if I see a white feather, I just say,
Mm.
hello, Dad. And in fact, the other day my son said, you got a white feather in my hair. And I said, oh, it's Papa. And he said, I know. Because I just, that's, they were little, they were
Mm.
and so whenever I see a white feather, I just say, hello, Dad. But tell us more about the energy side of it. That sounds really,
Yeah,
I'm
so
fascinated. I love energy healing anyway.
so yeah, that's the biggest thing. So say that's one of the things that's brought me the most comfort. I used to go and sit by the grave for hours, because in our heads we think, oh, that's where we are, we've got our point of respect where we go and play. But once they're gone, they're just everywhere. And also, if anyone's passed in like a horrible traumatic scenario, it's always said from anything I've read in all the various books I've covered, and that once that point's gone, that they're not suffering anymore. Or if they've been in an illness like Adam, it was one of the things mentally in my head. I tried to tell myself, oh, at least he's not suffering anymore. He's not, he was on morphine by the end, and things to, cover the pain. But it's true, they're just there, and they can connect with you whenever. And that you've got the not obvious signs, but the common signs that people will know. They'll talk about white feathers or robins or something like that, but you can literally have your own sign. Or two of the ladies that they run a grief podcast, and she was telling a story the other day, and husband was a bit oh, I don't believe in this sort of thing. And their son was into cars. He was 18 when he passed, so he had a Nissan Skyline. So that's often their sign, or they'll see his initials on number plates and things. So they can come through in different routes like that. But the other day, I think they were trying it. They were looking at moving. I think they was like concerned whether, because of Bradley, leaving the house and things like that. So they wanted some sign, and she said, well, just say something random. And he went, oh, a pink flamingo. So it's not going to be something you're going to see every day. And they were in a coffee shop, and she went to him, oh my God, Simon, have you seen them biscuits? And he sort of looked and went, yeah, they're biscuits. And no, Simon, have you seen the biscuits? They're biscuits. He's going to a no, look at the label. And there was a pink flamingo on the label of these biscuits in this little cafe they were in. So I mean, that's random. How many cafes are you going to go in where they can have a pink flamingo on a biscuit? So, yeah, it can be like that. Where you might see a pink flamingo notebook or something in a stationery store. So, it's not always obvious sort of thing. But yeah, and you've got to be open to it and realise when you're seeing it. Luckily,
Yeah.
she'd, but he hadn't. He just overlooked it, sort of thing. So.
Yeah. So would you ask for the sign? So did they, for example, did they say if we see a pink flamingo, then that's a sign that it's okay to move? Is that
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
so could you do
yeah.
it, would you do it with anything like that?
Yeah, you
How
could do
would
it with
you how
anything
would you
like that.
implement that in your life?
So, yeah, so I'm more of a feeler. So also as well with one of the energy sessions I work with, you use your body as like a body dowsing for yes or no. So sometimes I'll just feel into that, or even you can just see it and you can imagine the two scenarios, even like the rocking chair exercise. You could think, okay, I'm just going to carry on doing what I'm doing, this business, and I'm going to ignore what's happened at the weekend. Just sort of hands on your heart, get into that space and just sort of see what feelings you get, and then do it the other way where, oh, okay, I'm going to go out and I'm going to work with people with loss and how do I feel? And then you'll just feel the energy change. You'll feel lightness or you'll feel a bit more lit. Just like when you think about two different things, how do I feel about going out, sort of thing. You can feel excited or so you can just feel it in there. Some people, sometimes I'll use that as well. You can use a pendulum to get a yes, no for things as well. But yeah, and it can just be random things. Some people have their own, particular signs, butterflies or dragonflies and things. But or you can just pick something totally random like a pink flamingo and then be out and about. It might even come up on the TV. There might be an advert and they'll have strange things in it sometimes. But again, you've got to be watching for it because he'd missed it, sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
How
That's
many?
really interesting.
Yeah.
So, Jude, is there anything else that we need to mention today that we haven't spoken about, or something I could have asked you and haven't?
Oh, I think we've covered quite a lot in the short time. I think the only thing other thing I'd say link back to the weight as well, which is often I think could be some of my issues as well. We will use it as it's commonly known as like a protection thing. Like some ladies will just get bigger because then they think, it's that subconscious thing as well that they're not attractive to men if they've had issues like they've been through a messy divorce or something like that and they're not open to. I know for me at the time, at that point, Mr. Good Looking Millionaire could have knocked to the door and I'd have said bye, shut the door on him because I was very anti sort of thing. But yeah, you just, or again with the grief, even it's that sort of, you feed to put that space around you and protect yourself, not consciously. This is all subconscious, which is why, in some ways, obviously, it's more dangerous because you don't realise what you're doing or you're stuffing those emotions down. So, and then you're holding it all in. Although I've processed a lot and I'd got a lot further than some other people do, even though I didn't have any technical support at the time or guidance. So now I realise I had a different sort of guidance, but I wasn't aware of it at the time, and I think that's what made my life easier. But yeah, having more noted guidance either from the person that's passed in the way of asking for signs and using that, or guidance from someone that's been through losses and can be there sort of metaphorically holding your hand as you go through the different stages. I mean, that's the only other thing I'd touch on about grief is there's a model that was formed by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross back in the 60s of the stages of grief, but that they don't go, even now it's sort of backtracked. Initially it was as though they were sort of linear, you move through these stages and then you finally get to acceptance that okay, it's happened. But even like with myself, years later, even without the big breakdown, 20 odd years later, all the little triggers of other things, or one of my other major ones at that time, husband at the time, his best friend's mum passed away, so Russell was going to the funeral to support John, and I thought I was going to support Russell and John a little bit as well. And then at one point, I think it was one of the few funerals I'd been to after the three others. And yeah, I just broke down, and then I felt really guilty because at one point I remember John cuddling me and going, "Oh, you didn't even meet my mum, and you're so upset." And then how could I say in that point that my tears wasn't directly for his mum? I felt really bad then, sort of thing. That it was just it triggered, funerals with me. But yeah, once you get over that bit, then you're not triggered by all these things. And again, those triggers can, maybe not always, but sometimes they can then throw you back into I don't want to say bad ways, but the emotional eating again of either not eating enough or eating the wrong things.
Yeah. I think the eating is just a way of soothing, isn't it? It's a soothing mechanism. It's something we've been taught from birth that, we've been fed when we were upset, fed, whether that was a bottle or a boob or food. And that's a coping mechanism that we will link into.
Or it's like a treat as well. You think, oh, I finished that bit of work, so I'm going to treat myself to a bit of chocolate, or I'm going to treat myself to a day out. So
well, see, a day out would be a better treat than a piece of chocolate.
that's it.
We need. I was talking with a client last night, and I was saying, what will be your reward once when you've done what you said you're going to do? That's not food.
Yeah.
Food or drink. Yeah. So, yeah. So, Jude, how can people, because there might be people listening that have gone through this, it might have been years ago, it might be recent. How can they find out more about you and the work you're doing?
So my main website is sadnesstosunshine.com. And I'm on Instagram as Jude Hill Energy Healer. And yeah, that's it. I mean, from the website they'll find me. I've got a online membership that's just specifically for bereaved mothers, and then I've recently, because people have been saying, "Oh, can you help with other grief?" And obviously I've been through the two other major losses of losing both parents and relatively young as well. So yeah, I've now started a second group that's just for any other loss. So yeah, but there'll be the details of that all on the website. And
Fabulous. So before we let you go, can you give us some top tips?
some top tips. So the first I say is taking care of your emotional health, whatever you're going through, because we've all got some sort of emotions in a more healthy way, whether you're drawn to something like energy healing and you want to do that, or whatever other method helps you and gets out there, so you don't get into those habits where you're overeating or undereating. And the other one, yeah, move in whatever way feels good for you. So one of my favourite things, I like dancing. Don't get out and do it as quite as much, but then you can dance in your house as well, and that's another thing that your energy can shift just by putting music on and dancing to a tune. And if you're in your own home, you haven't even got to worry about whether you feel you look silly or what your dancing's like. So that's really good. Or yeah, when I'm out walking with Fred, getting out, if you can do it a bit in nature, then that's even better, because you're going to get the benefits of the nature connection there. And then my final one would probably be to say to drink plenty of water. So that helped me in a practical way when I was on various diets, shall we call them, sort of thing. Drinking more water, but just keeping hydrated is good for you. If you're doing energy work, I'll always tell you to keep hydrated as well, because that helps the toxins and the emotions flush through your body more. And yeah, it's good for your skin and everything, just natural. And I drink water most of the time now, yeah. And sometimes, people will say, "What do you want for a drink?" And I'll say water, and look at me like I'm a bit boring when I'm out. But I'll occasionally fancy a juice or something. But yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I
refreshing.
only drink water. Sometimes fizzy water, but mostly just water. And I think, yeah, for the drinking, we are energy, aren't we? Our body is energy, and it's mostly water.
Yeah.
So yeah, we need to. I don't think you need to go mad with the water, but you do need to keep your fluids up and keep drinking. Yeah.
And sometimes as well, when you think you're hungry, you're actually, or your body's actually only just telling you you're thirsty. So if you have a drink, then and now I'm talking about that, I want a drink.
Stop there for a minute and take some water. Thank you very much for being with me today.
You're very welcome.
So Jude and I were just talking offline before we hung up from each other, and we were talking about she's got her grief group, but there's another group that you've got as well. So tell us about that.
Yes, so it's something I naturally do when I meet people to, try and give them suggestions or, oh, there's this, you could look out for that if they've got a particular issue. And I just love empowering people in general. So in February, I started up something called the Thrive Together Circle over on school. So this is just a women's community to bring women together to talk about all the things that maybe we don't talk about sometimes with our friends or our family, just issues we've got going on. So anything could be to do, like Jackie's coming in to do a session for us in May, and so I have various experts come in and talk about all different things that would be of interest to us ladies. So there's a whole sort of library of bits and pieces in there, and it's just a community to come along and connect and grow together. So yeah, that's the Thrive Together Circle. So I think Jackie's going to put the link to that in the show notes as well, just in case anyone's after a really nice, friendly women's community to come along that's got lots of information on all manner of different holistic things on all areas of life.
Yeah, so it's not about grief at all, is it? It's just
No. So
you have to be a person grieving to join.
No, that's just for anyone. So I've got a general health and well-being section, relationships and connection section, self-growth and spirituality. I've guests come in, and then also business, career and wealth. So whether you're progressing in a career or you're in business like Jackie and I are, or you're just looking at other ways to increase your wealth or spend your wealth if you've got it.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Anything else you wanted to add?
No, that's it. Yeah, just look up the notes, and if something calls you, then come and join us. Yeah, I'd love to have any of the listeners into if they are suffering grief and loss in one of those communities, or if not, have any of the wonderful ladies in the Thrive Together Circle. And it's free at the moment, so it's going to be free for the first 500 members. So get in there quick, ladies.
Yeah, fabulous. Right, I'll see you there.
See you later.
Bye.